the hound out for a pee-pee.
Pee-pee hound.
Pee-pee hound. All right. All right. I want to talk about a couple of movies with a religious theme, Dustin.
Okay.
And I sort of just I'm contrasting them. I'm not quite sure where I want the conversation to go.
Yep.
Anyway, I recently rewatched Red State.
Guys, is that you, Travis?
Welcome, family.
Good evening, Grandpa.
I hate the wickedness of America. Rampant fornication, adultery, abortion, flagrant sexuality. Everywhere.
Hey, you fucking bitch! Let me the fuck out of here!
And it's up to the righteous to curb the spread of this disease. You mind taking children out now? Gonna get grown up in here.
Send the sinner straight to hell. Send the sinner straight to hell.
God doesn't love you. Unless you fear him.
Yes, sir. It's dawn here now, but we can be fully mobilized and on site in an hour. Come out with your hands up, and you will not be harmed. Repeat, you will not be harmed.
I think it's the use of the word repeat that makes this work every time.
I never saw the hand of God so clearly in all my born days.
Those government people, they're gonna kill you too. You get down on your knees and pray.
You said this was gonna be a simple in and out, sir? Simple just shit itself.
Talk about fearing God. I fear God. You better believe I fear God.
So I last saw this movie in maybe 2012.
Mm-hmm.
Remember, I was working in the news. I was working at Fox 10, and I remember really liking it. Especially in spite of its creative team. This is written and directed by Kevin Smith, Clerks Kevin Smith.
Yep.
Like what's the cop movie? Cop Out, Kevin Smith.
Cop Out.
You know, Jay and Silent Bob, Kevin Smith. So, I was surprised.
Crying on the internet to TV shows, Kevin Smith.
Yeah, I was surprised how much I remember liking the movie and how different it was from his films at the time. And I'm watching it again, and it's still a really well-made film. Unexpectedly good. Unexpectedly, because not that his other films aren't necessarily good, but Kevin Smith has an audience, and he likes to make films for that audience. Sure. And there's a certain juvenile nature to them, and there's a certain niche sense of humor to them. Kevin Smith fans are not people I generally like. It's more like I like seeing them portrayed in films, but I don't want to hang out with them.
Right.
The worldview is sort of like, great, cool.
Do you like Kevin Smith fans better or Zack Snyder fans better? Don't answer that question. Don't answer that question. That's the most controversial thing you'll ever say. Keep going.
Okay. All right. I'm going to exercise some restraint, Dustin. It's a new year. I have to do new things. Red State. So if you've never seen Red State, I do recommend it. It's a movie written and directed by Kevin Smith, starring Michael Anganaro, Carrie Bichet, Nicholas Braun, Kyle Gallner's in this, John Goodman, Melissa Leo. Michael Parks is in this movie. Michael Parks is like the main reason to see this movie. He plays the leader of this church. He's like a Fred Phelps type in a way. Like it's not Westboro Baptist, but he is one of those preachers who is essentially a cult leader. lots of guns.
This is kind of loosely based on Westboro Baptist, right? Or it's inspired by.
I'm sure it's inspired because they're mentioned in this, but they're not like as like a contrast. But yeah, he let's see here. Okay, yes, in April 2007. Kevin Smith announced at the Wizard World Chicago 2006 convention that his next project would move in a different direction and it would be a straight horror film. In April 2007, Smith revealed the title of the movie to be Red State and said that it was inspired by infamous pastor Fred Phelps and the Waco siege, or as Smith claimed, very much about that subject matter, that point of view, and that position taken to the absolute extreme. It is certainly not Phelps himself, but it's very much inspired by a Phelps-like figure. Smith made it clear Red State was a horror film, stating there would be no toilet humor in the film. So it's weird. Like after this movie came out, I expected
only toilet drama.
toilet tragedy. My poop. Sorry.
Oh no!
How could you? She was my wife. After this movie came out, I expected more films like this or, departures like this for him. Because I remember at the time seeing this, I may have talked about it. We were doing the podcast at the time, so I'm sure somewhere there's me talking about Red State. I'm pretty sure there is. I feel like I would have said I'm excited to see more from him because I wasn't aware he could make a film this good with an actual message in a different genre that doesn't feel like his at all.
Yeah, sure.
And what we got after this, what happened after this? Let me go through his filmography. After Red State, we got Jay and Silent Bob's super groovy cartoon movie.
Okay.
And then we got Tusk and Yoga Hosers and Jay and Silent Bob reboot and Clerks 3. I'm thinking what happened is that this movie didn't make money.
Yeah.
It was a $4 million budget. And it says here that it made $1.8 million at the box office.
Mm-hmm.
I know that there was a big thing with this movie where it was self-distributed, and there's this whole thing at the time where he's like, I'm going to put it up on my website or whatever. So there's a whole, you can read that history if you want to, but I still like Red State. I think it's worth seeing and talking. It's not like one of those things where you go, oh, if you like Kevin Smith's other movies, I just recommend Red State standalone. Like, especially if you hate Kevin Smith's other films, I still think Red State is Kevin Smith proof. It's an anomaly. It's weird.
Yeah.
I think Michael Parks is so good as this figure. I think all the performances are really good. The film starts with these three high schoolers who are going to meet up with a girl that they think is going to have a tryst with all three of them. And they are just being lured to this place so that they can be essentially killed for sins. And so at the same time, the ATF is coming down on the place. And so there's a big shootout and there's some really messed up things that happen and characters sort of come out of their shells a little bit. A couple people go, what are we doing? There's a great long, sermon by Michael Parks. It's just really delicious acting in the movie. It's weird that he didn't make any more. I understand why he maybe didn't, but you would think that Kevin Smith would just go, okay, well, every fourth movie, I'll do something fun. I don't know. It just seems disappointing that a guy who can self-distribute didn't choose. It sort of feels like, I don't know. There are times where I feel like Kevin Smith knows what he's doing. And there are times where I'm like, that guy just seems like a baby to me. And so I feel like what he said was well, no one wants to see my regular films. So I guess I'll just shit out these half-baked comedies that people, like Clerks 3. It's that's not being a filmmaker though. I don't know.
Right.
Kevin Smith deserves a lot of recognition for his role in the indie film director, the early 90s, Tarantino, Robert Rodriguez era. He has his place there, but it's like those other two have at least done stuff beyond that to evolve. And I feel like he's just sort of the same guy sometimes.
Yeah.
Red State, I think, is the reason it still resonates today. It's a picture for those who need the picture of how scary a Christian nationalist state would be. To me, at least. I not that anyone needs like an example of that. It's just like, I like seeing movies, especially in the horror genre, where something happens that I obviously wouldn't want to happen. It's just sort of cathartic to sort of remind yourself of the contingent that is out there without having to experience it like in real life.
Yeah.
So that's Red State's take on faith, it seems to be, or at least a premise. You never know if a filmmaker's going, religion's bad, look at these nuts, or if he just goes, I just want to make a movie about Fred Phelps. And so there's something to say about Christian nationalism and guns, but it's not like an overall message I'm giving. So the other film I saw around this time was Silence.
Ferreira is lost to us. He renounced God in public and surrendered the faith.
That's not possible. Father Ferreira risked his life to spread our faith all over Japan.
It seems to me that our mission here is more urgent than ever. We must go find Father Ferreira.
This is in your hearts, then, both of you?
Yes.
Then I must trust God has put it down. The moment you set foot in that country, you step into high danger.
The price for your glory is their suffering.
It's too dangerous.
We asked for this mission.
So Silence was made 5 years later by Martin Scorsese, based on a book, stars Andrew Garfield, Adam Driver. We've got Liam Neeson in here as well. And it's about a couple of Jesuit priests. It's the 1630s, I believe. And they're in Japan. And right now, Christians are being killed in Japan. You can't be a Christian. No siree. And so they are going to look for one of their own who was captured, and they is feared dead, but they're supposed to go in and look for him. They want to find him. There's rumors that he apostatized, that he renounced his faith at the behest of the Japanese government. And they're like, I don't believe it, whatever. So the film was about that, basically. So this film, conversely, is about the endurance of faith, what faith has survived in centuries past. So in a way, I don't have much to say about Silence. Silence is really cool. Again, if you're watching Scorsese's films, Silence is not one to skip. Performances are great. The production design's great. Everyone's great. And it's a subject that Scorsese is clearly interested in. And so it feels like it's handled with care and some nuance. Andrew Garfield is really, really great. That character goes through a lot. He goes through his own trials and doubts. He's very staunchly like, okay, well, like he spends a lot of the film debating with people. Like he says, look, he straight up tells the Japanese leaders like, right, but here's what we're preaching. He's not like, he doesn't get afraid, or it's interesting to watch a guy who has no leverage, endure in his faith, and not just like, I will stand here. And he's like, no, but this is what it is. And, you're doing this. But to see the Japanese go, right. We don't want that here. And, and you really have no right to come and bring it here. So just go or whatever. So it's interesting, but in a way, both films depict an authoritarian state and the painful penalties for nonconformity. And it's interesting to me when I saw these, I didn't plan to see them. I just sort of was like, oh, and I sort of saw this interesting comparison, how the freedom of worship should be protected, but the compulsion to worship should never be accepted. So it's a thinker. Silence is, and so is Red State. But yeah, it came up to me. I don't know whether it's like a conversation really about how film portrays these things, because so often you and I talk about how Christian cinema is just lacking. It's saccharine, it's toothless, and it has no impact because it's just sort of signaling to it's preaching to the choir. And movies like Red State and Silence, to me, so like I'll give some context. Like right now I am spiritually unmoored. I was raised Catholic. I was a pretty devout practicing one for a long time, and I am not now. But I'm still very, oh God, I don't want to say I'm spiritual. I'm still, I'm not.
Don't say it like that.
I'm not an atheist. Like I would say I'm an agnostic, but I'm an extremely loose agnostic. I'm not closed off to stuff. I'm just, if I had to define myself today, that's what I am. But I'm still very like interested in all this stuff. So I just don't identify with it as part of my identity right now. So for me, watching these movies, it's interesting to watch a movie like Red State, where it's like, yeah, I certainly would resist any attempt by one faith or demographic of religion to have any sort of foothold in official government. And it's actually happening in a couple of places, in a couple of like countries. And the Speaker of the House has said some stuff that is Christian national. Like it's just, there are people right now in our government who have said some stuff that's kind of like, wait, what? You would do what to people who didn't agree? Like it's just, that's troubling. Unless that's your thing, conversely, so it's interesting to look at that perspective and to say, funny enough, 400 years ago, those same people not those same people, but that same broad group that is sort of terrifying in that context, we're on the other side of that dynamic where just being Christian, just believing in Jesus got you killed. And they were holding people and saying, step on Christ. Like, but they had this thing and you're supposed to spit on it, step on it, whatever. Like that was the thing. And if you didn't, well, you got shot, you got tortured, you got tied up to a cross and put in the water at high tide. Like it wasn't good times. And so it's just really interesting that not the same exact doctrine, but essentially the same idea, these principles of faith has endured so long and been vulnerable and on the precipice of destruction at times, and then at other times been overly weaponized to control other people. It's weird.
Yep.
I don't know. All this to say, it was interesting watching these movies on like the same weekend and going, like it was a strange little history lesson, and I'm not sure what the lesson is.
I think the lesson is extremism bad, but maybe, but like, so, I mean, yeah, just, I have not seen these films. So, so for our listeners, I can't comment on these films. What I can comment on is the idea that, so I'm in a different boat. I am a Christian. And the way that I view these things is that, I'm of the ilk that would take the Bible seriously. That's the most studied text in human history and the most important text in human history. And that I believe that it says things that are true and that that need to be studied and wrestled with and grappled with, and that our lives are often in opposition to the things that are taught in that book. Mm-hmm. And that if we can conform ourselves to the words of Christ, conform ourselves to the words of that book, the world would be a better place. However, it's important to note that the words of Christ are deliberate and resolutely apolitical. And they are not designed. I think the direct quote from Jesus is, "My kingdom is not of this world. If it were of this world, my followers would come with a sword, but they don't."
Right.
And that's the idea. We don't. We're not bringing the words of Jesus through force, but through love and through kindness and through generosity,
example,
and through compassion. And a lot of times those things are misconstrued by people who would see generosity as somehow self-serving or something like that, and our intentions might be misread. But I think that the truth is, if you enact religious ritual as political policy, as some sort of legal mandate, it is inherently contradictory, because compulsory worship is not worship.
Right.
This is the whole point that we have free will. If we had no autonomy, then our worship of the divine, of God, would not be worth anything.
Genuine. Yeah.
This is the whole point. So for a Christian, for somebody who says they're a Christian, to enact policies that would force people to behave in certain ways on a religious notion would kind of be contradictory to what that religion actually teaches, to what Christianity is. And I think that using biblical principles to inform your political leanings may not be inherently bad, but enforcing your religious beliefs through threats or violence is inherently bad. And so, yeah, I think that's the red state side of it.
Right.
The other side of it being, just the endurance of the faith. Like I said, this is the most studied text in human history. And the text, was written during the lifetime of eyewitnesses, and could very easily have been stamped out before it started. And it wasn't. And the people who wrote this book and the people who shared it were martyred for it. And you don't go to your death for a joke, and you don't go to your death for something that's untrue. And you can always debate, well, maybe they thought it was true, it wasn't true, and blah, blah, blah. But when we're splitting hairs, and the point being that the faith endured through the beginning, it's very Genesis, and before that had endured through oppression against the Jews. The Israelites suffered tremendously, and yet they persevered, and then it gave way to, all of this beauty in Jesus, and as the culmination of what the Israelites were longing for. And the long, history of it is, it could have been stomped out a million times. And each time it was taken to a new continent and a new country and a new state, a new location, it was in danger of being stomped out before it started, and it endured. And I think that there's a lot to be admired, a lot to admire this particular faith for, and its endurance may be one of the highest things to admire it for. And I think that for anything to cross both time and cultures and countries and space is a remarkable thing. That this book, these collection of books, is universal in some way, and that people, no matter their culture, are latching onto it and finding it and loving it, and that's and studying it, and that's a tremendous victory. And there's a lot of really great things that have come out of the spread of the Christian ethic, whether that's hospitals and just the general laws on our books are founded on some level of morality that was perhaps not originated by the text, but defined by the text. And I think that it was, morality is written on our hearts. Morality is there. But yeah, I think that the spread of the Christian message has been a tremendous blessing to the world. And so all that to say, while I can't speak about these films, what I will say is that the lens that Hollywood often views Christianity through is understandable. It is definitely more dramatic and more surprising and more interesting to have somebody say, I'm a Christian, and behave poorly than it is the opposite. So of course, that's the one that we gravitate to. And there was a famous tweet recently by Rainn Wilson during the Last of Us TV series. And there's a moment where I forget which episode it is, but it starts with a character, reading from the Bible. And Rainn Wilson tweets, like, as soon as he was reading from the Bible, I thought, oh, he'll be a great villain. And he's calling out this thing that Hollywood has done, which is said, if we want to make a villain really detestable, we just have them quote the Bible. Right. And again, I think that that's understandable, because those who don't understand the Bible or haven't studied the Bible would view it incorrectly, but also because it's just more dramatic. It makes way more sense to say, here's a guy, and you would think he's a good guy because look what he's doing, but he's a bad guy. But it has this unintended side effect of making the faith seem, and especially a cumulative effect, where as this happens and becomes a trope, it has a cumulative effect where it makes the entire faith seem disingenuous and at best, and villainous at worst. And so I think that the way that Hollywood often portrays Christians is problematic and disrespectful, but understandable nonetheless. And so, yeah, I think that, it doesn't surprise me that there are a lot of people who view Christianity who write films, a lot of people who view Christianity in ways that are accurate and some that are less accurate. And a part of that is because people live out their faith in ways that are accurate and less accurate. And so if you happen to have a couple of parents who claim to be Christians and have treated you poorly your entire life, your view of Christianity is probably stilted and stunted. If you knew like an uncle who was an abuser of some kind, but still went to church on Sundays, then your view of that will be tainted. And likewise, if all you hear about is the Westboro Baptist Church, your view of church, of Christianity will be tainted. And I think that you haven't maybe stopped to consider the people who are claiming to be Christians. Are they actually following any of the precepts of that book? And you know, there is no checklist. There's no like, well, if you're a Christian, you must do these things, check these boxes, and then you're a member. And like that's not a case. So like anybody can say I'm a Christian and do literally nothing, or do everything the opposite of what Scripture would say, and still call themselves a Christian and just be out there kind of saying I'm a Christian and giving all Christians a bad name. And like, so that doesn't surprise me either. But I guess all this is a long-winded way of saying I do think it's time for we talked about this recently, for Christian media to step up and be better. It's time for Hollywood to do better at how they portray Christianity, and it's time for more varying depictions of it, because as with everything, there is a continuum. There is, many shades of what Christianity looks like. And some of it is true. Some of it is false. Some of it is beautiful, and some of it's not so beautiful. And all of it is part of the story, and part of the story of history, right? We've seen both very beautiful things, and we've seen crusades that were not. And yet it endures. It's a good thing, in my opinion, that it endures. And I think that, if we can view in our media all these different depictions of it, and kind of open ourselves to learn a little bit about it from everybody's perspective, we'll be better for it. No one's ever better because they sit in an echo chamber.
Right.
You only grow, you only learn, and you only progress when you actually listen to other people's perspectives. And what I think is important when you listen to other people's perspectives is you don't have to listen to it as an open net. Like, I'm going to take all of these things and become essentially like tossed around like a tiny dinghy on an ocean, like where there's nothing, there's nothing. And it's, this person tells me this thing and I go this way, and this person tells me this thing and I go this way. And that's all it is rocking back and forth. But you take it all in, root yourself in what you know to be true, and take in all those experiences and allow it to filter and say, okay, if that person was hurt by Christianity, or that person was hurt by a Christian, then I'm going to hear their story, take in their story, view it through the lens that I have, and feed it back to them in a way that's healing, in a way that is hopeful, in a way that's encouraging, in a way that's loving, in a way that's kind. And because that's what they need. And if somebody comes and gives me something that is, hey, wouldn't it be great if we took all other religions and put them in jail? Then it's like, I'm going to listen to your perspective, and I'm going to filter it through all the things that I know is wrong with that perspective. And because I'm rooted in something, and then I'm going to give it back to you and say, actually, if you really believed what you say you believe, then those words wouldn't have been coming out of your mouth. And you give that to them again in kindness, in love, in generosity, in a good spirit. But you also be firm and say like, you're kind of an idiot.
I've told the FBI about you.
Yes, you're on a watch list.
I wrote down
now.
your license plate before you came here.
Right. I don't want to see you again. But you know what I mean? Like if you're not anchored to something, you will be tossed around. But it is important to listen to all of these stories. So whether it's Red State, where you're listening to like, here's what it could look like, or The Handmaid's Tale is another example of that. This is what that could look like. And you're like, yeah, I mean, sure, it could look like that. Yeah. And that would suck because that's an inaccurate version of what I believe.
Right.
But it's true. People believe that. And that sucks because they're not doing the homework.
Yeah.
And then likewise, it's important to watch things like Silence, or, we talked about like, the Book of Eli. We talked, I think another good example, like Hacksaw Ridge. These are films that are good and display Christianity as something that's worthwhile.
Yeah.
And something that's necessary and something that's beautiful.
Book of Eli is so good.
The Book of Eli is so good. Right. Like, and obviously everyone's, example for always is Narnia, right? Like,
right.
And you put even the works of Tolkien in the same category. These are, maybe not allegory, per se. Narnia is closer allegory, but like, but you take it and you listen to it, you filter it through what you know to be true, and take in what maybe you need to take in from it and filter it back out into the world as something beautiful. And I think that's our job. And we're not tossed around by every wind, but we're anchored in something and taking in stories. And that's what this all is, right? Like, there's a reason I'm a storyteller. There's a reason that I like stories. It's because I want to hear other people's perspectives. Yeah. I want to hear what life is like for other people. And if I didn't want that, then I wouldn't like movies. And I think if you really like movies, it's because you like hearing stories, and I hope you don't just watch only things that affirm what you already think, but you're challenging yourself and allowing yourself to take some of the new stuff in. Some of it you can hold, but a lot of it you're going to have to let go. And a lot of it you're going to have to filter, and that's our job anyway. And as humans, and so if we walked around and caught everything and kept everything, we would malfunction. We have to filter it out, and so that's what that is. But so don't just watch. Like, I know people in Christian circles who don't watch movies except for Christian movies, and the movies are awful, and we've talked about them before. And I'm like, first of all, you're not getting a good story. You're not getting a good film. You're not learning.
Movies are really good. You guys have no idea.
Yeah, right. Exactly. But also all you're hearing is your own voice repeated back to you.
Yeah.
It's not doing anything for you. It's a waste of your time. But yeah, if you're able to challenge yourself and watch something that is somebody else's perspective, you'll be richer for it.
It's the same with books too. Like, books and movies, I find the same approach being like, you're best off if you read, or in this case, read a lot and read widely.
Yeah.
And put in the time, whatever your system is. Like, I don't know how one systemizes randomly coming across things without bias towards the subject matter.
Sure.
But you figure it out. But one thing that I do for this podcast is I watch a movie and then I at least read the Wikipedia page. I like to know stuff about its production history. I like to know a little more about it. Not only does it make this discussion more interesting, but usually like the context within which a film is made can sort of color what it is. And it's weird. It's like, well, shouldn't the film speak for itself? And it does, but that context to me is part of what's interesting about movies. It's like, sometimes you get movies that are made and you find out like, oh, Paramount was really struggling, so it was trying to push out a bunch of comedies. And that might be why this one seems stupid, because it was a rush job. You know, it deepens and enriches it from just being, well, this was just a bad film to no, they had like 30 days to shoot it and the director got fired or whatever. Like it matters a little bit.
Yeah. And I love you love the context and I love the conversation.
Yeah.
And I know you do too, but it's like, for me, when I see a movie, whether I love it or I hate it, I go and watch reviews and or video essays or whatever.
Yeah.
And I don't do this to figure out whether or not I liked the movie. Although, you know, as anyone should admit, you watch a lot of reviews, it will flavor your opinion.
Yeah. It's because oftentimes people point things out and you go, oh yeah.
Oh yeah. I didn't think about that.
Yeah.
But that's the point.
You're supposed to do that.
I'm not going to figure out, do I like the movie? I'm going to figure out what did somebody else get from this movie?
Right.
And a lot of times if it's a really,
something?
if it's a bad movie, I want to go like, if it's a movie that I thought was bad that everybody loved, I'm like, what did I miss?
Right.
Right. And so I want to hear the conversation. If it's a movie that I thought was, that I thought was bad and everybody else thought was bad, I'm like, well, okay, I want to hear why everybody else thought this was bad. Like, what stuck out to you? Like, I know what stuck out to me. What sticks out to you?
Yeah.
And, or if it's a movie that I love and everybody else hates, I want to go hear why you didn't like, why it didn't work for you.
Yeah.
And, because that to me is also interesting to, as a storyteller, to go like, hey, this really worked for me. Why didn't it work for you? You had a similar experience recently with Avatar: Way of Water.
Yeah.
It didn't work as well for Kellen and I, but it worked well for you.
Yeah.
And that's the subjective nature of film, but that's also super interesting to me. Like why things work for people and not for other people. Like of our friend group, you really love Incredibles 2. John really doesn't love it, and I'm in the middle. Yeah. And it's interesting to see why. Like, why are we? We see eye to eye on so many things. Why did this we not see eye to eye on? And I think that's a good conversation starter. And so, yeah, the movie's great, but I also love the conversation movies open up.
The more I'm like home with my kids and handling all the house stuff, and the more that my wife's schedule gets crazy, the more I love Incredibles 2. the more I experience Bob Parr's story in my life, the more I'm like, this is a great film.
Yeah, right.
I feel seen.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah. Films, and I mean, and the same with books. Like you read something and you go, okay, there's stuff in here that's interesting. It's different from what I believe. Some of it is revelatory and completely changes how I think. And some of it I go, oh, that's nice. But it's, I still believe what I believe. Yeah. It's sort of what you're supposed to do. You have to be both. You have to be both, being open-minded isn't the boat in the storm. It's not being ready to be changed by everything that happens to you, but it's being open to letting experiences and information change your opinion. But that's best done when you have some idea of who you are and what you believe, and whether or not new information or art that you take in strengthens those beliefs or reveals them to be weak or false or ill understood or something. Yes.
I guess the analogy is like, if we keep with the boat analogy, you have a net and you toss it into the sea. Some people's nets are wide and open and they have huge holes in them. So what happens is these new ideas come in and they just go right out and nothing has changed. And some have, like a butterfly net type thing. It's still opaque, but it's porous enough to allow the ideas through. So some gets caught and some filter out. This is the ideal. And then some have a completely opaque net.
Just a bucket.
Where
Large bucket.
It's a huge sail.
Yeah.
So when the wind and the waves hit it, the whole boat just goes.
Yeah.
And so this is what you don't want to be. You don't want to be the open net either, but like you certainly don't want to be this, because then everything that comes at you moves you. Yeah. And the open, nothing moves you, and you don't want to be that either. So it's a hard thing to balance, because you want to be anchored. You want to have something true to hold on to, but you also want to be able to take stuff in and add to it. It's not so much like that you're looking always to remove, but you're looking to add, and to add flavoring to it. You got a really good jambalaya going, but you got to add some more ingredients. You don't want to get rid of what you got. It's really good. You just got to add a little more seasoning to it. And like that's what life is. And but it's tough, dude. It's tough.
Yeah, it can be tough. And I understand, like, there are people who can't really trust a film. I understand the point of view that people might watch a film and feel as if they are being presented a very specific story with very carefully controlled, like, oh, of course the character would do this thing that I would never do because of these exact circumstances they're in. And, I understand that feeling that you feel like you're being presented, like you feel like you're being made to change your opinion or view about something because of something the character went through. And you might feel like, well, that's a super specific example. But I feel like part of reading or watching things widely and being open to their influence is that's where reading the context comes in. That's where you watch you watch like Mother, and then you kind of read that Darren Aronofsky has like weird views about the Bible, and then you're like, oh, okay, well maybe maybe I should get a second opinion.
Right.
Like that's where context does matter, and it should be. These are artists with perspectives at the end of the day, and people who write books do research, but they have a perspective. And, you read their perspective, you go, whoa, that's cool. I never thought about it that way. And then you go back behind it and go, they also wrote this other stuff where, they don't think that women should be allowed to work. Okay, well, maybe I should, like it just that kind of thing. Like,
well, but we talk about this a lot. So sorry, listeners, but like, the people who watch movies and then immediately just say woke, it's woke.
Yeah.
These are the people with the wide open nets. They don't feel anything because all of these new ideas, stories and experiences and anecdotes go straight through them. They're not taking anything in. And so they don't, whatever. But then like, I guess the opposite end would be like somebody who's like super duper, incredibly crazy, extreme progressive who has the, like every story that gets told moves them, and they're like, oh, I feel so heavily for this thing. And then now I'm all about this. And then something else comes, now I'm all about this. And then something else, I'm all about this. And it's like, you're not grabbing any, like you're not actually holding any, like you're not anchoring yourself in anything, because you're just like, I'm looking for something to anchor me, but I'm not actually looking.
Yeah.
And so, I think that's where, film criticism becomes crazy, because you've got both camps, but it seems like, the people with the open nets maybe, are sometimes more vocal about like, well, this is just woke garbage and I'm not dealing with this. This has got too many women in this movie. And I'm like, well, y'all, why'd they have to reboot Oceans with women? Come on, Oceans is a man's thing. And it's like, but it's not, shut up. And it doesn't mean anything.
And that's where you go, hey, look, guy, like whether or not you agree with this, the studio is just trying to make, like the studio isn't thinking about political implications. The studio is thinking about money. And that's where the perspective, that's where like the cynical capitalist perspective really plays into a lot of my views about movies.
Yes.
Where I just go, but why? And I just go, money. It's just money.
All you have to do is explain it like this. Studio says oceans make money.
Yeah.
Studio says women make money. But women see ocean.
Yeah.
What if women see ocean? Then ocean people see ocean and women see ocean. Then that more people see ocean.
And more money make we.
And then more blow me can buy.
Right. And
right.
Perhaps women we not pay as much. And we keep more of keep more of money,
Right.
Like we can afford Sandra Bullock, can we? Like we.
Yes.
That's the thing. Like
once Mindy Kaling, we pay less.
Once you understand that studios are just trying to make money, it kind of takes the like political anger out of these things, or it can't, or it should. Once you go, oh, Paramount doesn't care about politics.
Paramount don't care amount.
Paramount is just looking at metrics and audience viewing patterns and surveys and index cards, and they're going, hey, what if we make this such and such movie? Everything is risk mitigation.
Correct. I had this exact conversation years ago when Ghostbusters came out, the Melissa McCarthy Ghostbusters. And somebody was like, I just don't understand why they would do this. And I was like, it's very simple. Because if they made another Ghostbusters movie with the original cast, then all the women all the husbands would want to go to the movie, and their wives would say, go on, have a good time without me. But if they thought if they put women in it front and center, then the women would go with the men, and that's 2 times the tickets.
Right.
And it's like, so they're not out here going, but if we just avoid men altogether, then all men will be subjugated.
Right.
Instead, they're going, we want money.
Yeah. We think we can make at least minimum 1% more money.
Yes.
And that sounds good to us.
Correct. That's exactly what it is. Somebody somewhere goes, my son loves Ghostbusters. His wife does not love Ghostbusters. Yeah. If we made her love Ghostbusters by putting one of her favorite actresses in it, then we sell 2 tickets.
We can turn her.
Right, exactly.
We have a chance to make her love Ghostbusters. And then when we make more Ghostbusters movies after this one makes money, whether or not we stock it with women or men, we've turned people into Ghostbusters fans.
That's exactly what it is.
Like, that's what it is. Like that movie was an attempt to bring women into the Ghostbusters audience.
Yep.
And it failed.
And it failed, but not because it was women.
Right. Exactly. Right.
Because it was poor. That's the whole thing.
Yeah.
And so, but that's also how you kind of know that it was a money decision.
Yeah.
Is because it was handled so sloppily.
Yep.
They literally put that much thought into it, but women will put women in it.
Right.
And then they stopped thinking about it.
Yep. Like, problem solved, guys. Everyone have a good weekend.
Money.
We did it.
Yeah, that's right. And so, yes. So all that to say, I can't work myself up about stuff like that, but but there are people who totally do.
Yeah.
And those, I feel sad for those people because they're missing things that are genuinely pretty good. Like, perhaps we'll talk about this sometime in the future. A series just premiered, which is a new take on Scott Pilgrim versus the World on Netflix. And I've seen a few people, like a lot of people, it's getting a lot of praise, but then there's a few people who are like, I don't like this one, and it was woke stuff, and I'm like, so it's that kind of thing where this is a good we'll review it later, but like, this is a good story. Like, why are you so adamant that this is bad?
Yeah.
Just because of what? I don't understand.
Yeah.
And that, it bothers me so much, but
it bothers me too, because it just sort of, and it's our jobs and people's jobs. Once you find yourself up against that kind of inflexibility, you just sort of go, oh, cool. So it's very easy for me now to know what you would endorse and what you wouldn't. And so now when you tell me something sucks, I'm not going to listen to you because.
Yes. And it also bothers me on the flip side when the studio, like, it doesn't perform well and the studio goes, it's because the audience is racist or they're sexist.
Oh, yeah.
And
when what was it? Bros. Was that the name of the movie?
Yes.
The Billy Eichner movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because everyone's homophobic.
Everyone's homophobic. And it's like, and I tried to watch the movie. I just didn't think it was funny.
Well, and that's the thing is
I watched like half of it.
Yeah.
I was like,
anytime people throw that out there, like, well, it's because they said this about the Star Wars sequels. It was like, well, it's because people just don't like the fact that it's a female-led thing and there's, a person of color in a significant role.
Yeah.
And I'm like, that's not it. No. Sci-fi nerds, they will watch anything with anybody.
Right.
They just hate crap.
Yes, exactly.
That's what it boils down to.
Yeah.
That's why and that made plenty of money, but you know what I mean? Like, but they still tried to couch it as like, well, it's just because people are whatever. And they're talking about the critical reception or whatever. And I'm like, no, are you kidding me? The same people who watched Star Wars sequels and hated it are the same people who watched the Terminator and Alien and loved them.
Yeah.
It has nothing to do with the female-led thing. And the same people who watched the Star Wars sequels watched the original Star Wars and they love Princess Leia and they bought all the Lando action figures. Yeah, that's not the reason.
Right. They don't have
the
problem.
reason is because you gave us something stupid.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You pee-peed on my leg and you told me it was raining.
And when I said stop pee-peeing my leg, you said, "Well, you're a sexist."
What's the matter? You don't like when women pee-pee on you?
I don't like any of this. I don't like having this conversation.
I just don't like piss. That's it. It's not personal.
Right.
It's personal.
If I'm stung by a jellyfish, that's fine, but not right now.
That's right. You're like Daisy Ridley pissing on your leg. No, I just don't like being pissed on.
It's pretty simple.
I'm sure she's nice, but this is not a good start.
It's pretty simple. I like a dry leg. That's it.
I like my legs piss free, please.
My pants are damp. I don't like the feel of moist denim.
So is my mood. All right.
That should be the tagline for Star Wars Rise of Skywalker? Is that what the last one's called?
Yes.
Enter the Skywalker? It should be called the tagline Star Wars Episode 9 Rise of Skywalker. The same feeling as damp pants.
Wet pants.
Yeah. Anyway, I don't know how we got to talking about that, but I mean, there you go. Maybe there's a nugget of wisdom in there somewhere for how we should view movies.
Have fun finding it, everyone.
If you find it, let us know. I don't know where it is either.
Okay, everyone. That's all.
Get out.
Extremism bad. Get out. You said. Get out.
Get out. Get out of my house.
Please leave. Hit that button. Go to the next podcast.
Yep.
We're going to sit here for a few more seconds and wait for you to leave first so that we don't have to leave first and look like idiots.
Yep.
Are you gone yet?
You're looking at the scroll bar, aren't you?
Yeah.
You know exactly how much time is left in this podcast. What if we just count it down for 1 minute and 12 seconds?
We'll just let them listen to me like start doing dishes.
It's late and I'm tired and this is borderline experimental at this point.